Real wealth rarely comes from big moves. More often, it's built by a few quiet brain habits repeated for years. Here are 10 of them. None of these habits look impressive from the outside. You won't post them online. You won't feel a rush when you do them. But over time, they quietly rewire the parts of your brain that decide how you handle money, risk, boredom, and other people's opinions. That's really what wealth is. Not a number. A pattern of decisions your brain makes automatically, under pressure, without drama. And the brain that builds wealth isn't louder or faster than most. It's calmer, cleaner, slower to react, and quicker to notice. Let's walk through the 10 habits that shape that kind of mind, starting with the one almost everyone underestimates. The first habit is the reason so many people earn more and still feel behind, so pay close attention to how simple it actually is. The first habit is the delay between feeling and spending. Wealthy-minded people rarely act on the first spike of desire. They let the urge rise, notice it, and wait. Neuroscience calls this the gap between the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. The limbic system fires the craving. The prefrontal cortex weighs the consequences. When you spend fast, the limbic system wins. When you pause, even for a few minutes, the prefrontal cortex catches up and takes the wheel. That short pause is a muscle. Every time we use it, you strengthen the neural pathway that says, I don't have to obey every impulse I feel. Try this today. When you feel the pull to buy something you didn't plan to buy, wait 24 hours. Most cravings don't survive a single night of sleep. And what dies in that pause is exactly what would have quietly bled your future dry. The second habit is watching your dopamine without judging it. Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. It isn't. It's the anticipation chemical, the one that pulls you toward the next thing. Quiet wealth minds learn to notice their own dopamine spikes. The itch to check the phone, the pull toward the sale, the tug toward a shiny new venture before finishing the last one. They don't shame the spike. They just observe it. Because a craving watched is a craving weakened. Start noticing which apps, screens, and thoughts spike you the hardest. Awareness alone begins to loosen their grip on your attention and your wallet. The third habit is doing boring things at a consistent time. The brain loves rhythm more than it loves motivation. When you repeat an action at the same time each day, the basal ganglia, the brain's habit engine, quietly automates it. Willpower stops being required. That's how small deposits, small reviews of your numbers, small daily check-ins compound into a financial life that looks lucky from the outside. It isn't luck. It's a habit loop that stopped needing your permission years ago. Pick one boring money habit. Same time, same trigger, every day. Then let your brain do what it was built to do. The fourth habit is the willingness to be quietly wrong in public. Ego is expensive. Every time you defend a bad decision to look right, your brain releases cortisol, the stress hormone, and narrows your thinking. Wealthy-minded people cut losses early because they've trained the prefrontal cortex to override that ego reflex. They'd rather look foolish for a week than stay trapped in a decision for a decade. The habit is small. When you notice you are wrong, say so, adjust, and move on within the same conversation. Each time you do it, you weaken the ego's grip and strengthen the part of your brain that thinks clearly under pressure. And clear thinking under pressure is where most real money is made or lost. Speaking of pressure, the next habit is the one that separates people who look calm from people who actually are. The fifth habit is regulating your nervous system before making any big decision. When you're anxious, tired, or angry, your amygdala runs the show. It's fast, loud, and built for survival, not strategy. The prefrontal cortex, where long-term thinking lives, goes quiet when the amygdala is loud. That's why almost every regretted financial decision was made in a spiked state. Quiet wealth minds learn to notice the spike. They breathe, they wait, they sleep on it. They come back to the decision with a settled body. Try this. Never sign, send, or click on anything financially meaningful when your heart rate is up. That single rule, repeated for a few years, can quietly save you from most of your worst outcomes. The sixth habit is reading, but slowly. Not more books, deeper ones. Wealthy-minded people tend to read a small number of books many times. There's a neuroscience reason for this. Repetition builds myelin, the fatty coating around neurons that makes signals faster and cleaner. The ideas you revisit become the ideas your brain reaches for under pressure. Skimming 100 books gives you trivia. Rereading 5 great ones gives you a mental operating system. Pick one book that changed how you think. Reread it slowly this year. Underline what you already underlined and notice what looks different now. You're not learning new information. You're wiring old information deeper into the brain that will make decisions for the next 20 years. The seventh habit is the discipline of unspent attention. Most people spend their attention like water on feeds, gossip, comparison, small dramas, and attention is the raw material every skill and every asset is built from. The default mode network, the part of your brain that hums when you're not focused on anything, is where insight, planning, and creativity actually happen. It needs empty time, boredom, long walks, quiet. When you never let your mind rest, that network never gets to do its real work. You feel busy, but you stop having original ideas. Protect one small window a day with no input, no podcast, no scroll, just walking, or sitting, or staring at something ordinary. That empty room in your head is where the best moves quietly get planned. The eighth habit is speaking about money without shame or theater. Most people either avoid the topic or perform around it. Quiet wealth minds do neither. They talk about it like weather, with facts, without drama. Shame and performance both activate the brain's threat response, which shuts down the parts of you that could actually solve the problem. Neutral talk keeps the prefrontal cortex online. The habit is simple. Practice saying real numbers out loud, to yourself first, then to someone you trust, what you earn, what you owe, what you don't yet know. The nervous system slowly learns that money is a subject, not a threat, and a mind that isn't afraid of the topic can finally think about it clearly. The ninth habit is choosing longer time horizons on purpose. The brain isn't naturally wired for the long term. It evolved for near-term survival, which is why later feels foggy and now feels sharp. But you can train a longer horizon. Every time you consciously ask, how will this feel in 10 years, not 10 minutes, you strengthen the neural link between your present self and your future self. Research on this consistently finds that people who feel more connected to their future selves save more, argue less, and take on less debt, not because they're more disciplined, but because the future finally feels real to them. Try this. When you make any decision that involves money or time, ask one question: will this matter in a decade? Then act from that answer, not the mood you're in. That single habit, repeated quietly for years, is often the entire difference between two lives. The 10th habit is the one that ties all the others together, and it's the one almost no one talks about. The 10th habit is being unimpressed by your own good decisions. Most people, when they finally do something wise, celebrate it loudly. They tell friends, they reward themselves, they spike their dopamine on the win. The problem is that dopamine can't tell the difference between celebrating the habit and completing the habit. When you make a big deal of a good decision, the brain files it as finished. Motivation drops. The streak often ends within days. Quiet wealth minds do the opposite. They make the wise decision, note it, and move on like it was nothing. No fanfare, no reward, just the next quiet rep. Over time, this trains the brain to see good decisions as your baseline, not your achievement. And once that becomes your baseline, everything else in your life starts to slowly rearrange around it. Notice what all 10 of these habits share. None of them require more money. None of them require more intelligence. None of them require luck. They require a brain that's a little slower to react, a little quicker to notice, and a little more comfortable being quiet. That's the real work. Not building wealth, building the mind that can hold it. And here's the part most people miss. You don't need all 10 to start. One, done consistently for a year, will change more about your life than a dozen brilliant ideas you never repeat. So take a moment and be honest with yourself. Which at least 10 did you feel in your chest as I described it? That's usually the one your future is asking you to start with. Tell me in the comments which habit landed hardest and which one you're going to try first. I read them, and the patterns in your answers often shape what I write next. If this way of thinking felt useful, there's a companion video I'd point you toward next, on the quiet daily routines that calm the mind and sharpen decisions. It pairs closely with everything we just covered. And if you want more of this, calm, practical brain habits every week, no hype, no noise, just what actually works, subscribe and turn on the bell so the next one finds you. Because in the end, real wealth isn't loud, and neither is the mind that builds it. It's just a few quiet habits, repeated long enough that the world starts to call it luck.